Okay. It is April 8th. It's a Monday, 2024. And I'm still Anthony Uhago. This is American Micro. And this is Rodney. What's up, Rodney?
What's up, bro? Good. Yeah, just down here in Mexico, beautiful day. Uh, doing the like I said, third world thing with the first world vibe, and can't complain, bro. Can't complain. Things could be a lot worse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. And
So, but
to,
and we're going to talk about how things could get a lot worse.
yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely the yeah, man. I mean, if this isn't on your mind, if this is not on your mind as an American who just believes in just normal stuff, dude, like we're Americans, right? But I think that concept of I think black and white is like a serious issue these days, but and black and white, women's rights, um, black indigenous people of color, white men who think that the racism is you know thrown in their face. Now they believe that they're being trampled on. They're they need, I don't know, protection from racists who are now people of color. I'm like, what are you fucking kidding me? I mean, that's just where we are, dude. And Project 2025, as um, you and I have been talking about this for a while. It seems to be a and it's not hypothetical, but right now it is because he's not in office. But there are a lot of reasons and scenarios and risks associated with various types of projects like this or initiatives. So here's the thing, okay? And I'll throw these out at you, and then you just tell me what you think. Like lack of
Okay.
transparency, right? That's one of the things. So the Project 2025, operates covertly. So it has no transparency whatsoever. Okay, which means we don't know what the hell these people are thinking. Yeah, we know what they're thinking. We know exactly what they're thinking. They're fascists. Okay, and it could lead to suspicion and distrust among the public. That's the first thing. Then you have the ethical concerns. The project may involve ethically questionable practices, mainly against people that don't think the same way that Trump does. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Um, you have the environmental impact. You have just the thrust of this project on women's rights. So imagine that he would try. Let's just say he wins, and they win the House and the Senate. They could totally proceed in a blanket in policy that would blanket each and every state in this country with an abortion ban. I mean, there's so many things that could happen. So what are your thoughts on this?
Um, yeah. I have a different take on well, you didn't say you'll only worry if they win the Congress and the Senate. We we're screwed if he wins, period, because Project 2025 and Trump, outside of Project 2025, uh, believe in the same kind of executive power that the Heritage Foundation, who wrote project or put together Project 2025 with like 100 plus other conservative think tanks, uh, they wrote the playbook for Reagan, and Reagan was told by them in this playbook that they handed him, hey, we have this legal theory that we've put together. I mean, it's complete and utter bullshit. It's something that they just made up. They were looking for little holes, loopholes to extract more power. And they said, hey, we have this theory about Article 2 of the Constitution, where it mentions that the president has the executive power. And that gave them the ability to put together and throw out this theory that it's not legal for Congress to put together departments like the department, like the EPA or like the Department of State, et cetera, like all of them. They say that that's only a power afforded to anybody by the Constitution to the president. So they gave that theory to Reagan, and Reagan enacted a lot of insane policies that overstepped traditional bounds of presidential power. And then the same theory was used by Bush after 9/11. And for those who think that they're neither Democrat nor Republican, and they're like high thinking independents or whatever, who criticized Obama, who criticized Bush, who criticized, Clinton, who criticized Obama, you should be afraid of this same type of philosophy if you were at all criticizing Obama for overstepping presidential powers when he did it too, because he did use initially he was very critical of that type of philosophy, but as he got into his administration further, he did use some of the same philosophies in expanding presidential powers. And Trump absolutely tested those waters to the point where he said that one of his travel bans was unreviewable by the judiciary, and the judges had to rebuke him. All legal scholars, everybody said, holy shit, no, nothing is unreviewable by the judiciary, because we have the separation of powers. That's critical. It's key. It's in the Constitution. And speaking of the Constitution, the argument that conservatives put together to support the idea of turning a president into a king, the Article 2 argument is completely shot down by the fact that the very first program put together through presidential powers was the Department of State in like 1789, I think. And this was when the founders, the people who wrote the Constitution, were still populating Washington. So it's pretty unquestionable, unless you're an idiot, that the Constitution implies the powers that Congress, Congress put together the Department of State, not the president. So it's pretty undeniable that the founders intended for Congress to be able to put together departments and fund them, clearly, because that's also put together in the Constitution. But Trump said during his presidency that the president has complete and utter power like a king, thanks to Article 2. Even the power, he tried to use the power to not just create systems like travel bans unilaterally without any help from Congress, but also to withhold money, which is the power of the purse, which is afforded only to Congress. So Trump has shown us and told us that he is clearly uninterested in the separation of powers, how the Constitution provides or restricts power, He wants to act like a king. Now, people have said he was joking when he said on day one, and only on day one, he would act like an authoritarian. But literally in his presidency, he did these expansions of power and told judges that they couldn't review his actions. So we know he legitimately behaves and believes in behaving like an authoritarian. So I don't buy for a second that we only need or that it requires Republicans taking hold of Congress and the Senate in order for us to get put into a situation where we have a dictator, especially if we get Project 2025 handed over to all of the departments, just like Reagan did, thanks to the Heritage Foundation um, and the Federal Society. Those playbooks are typically handed out when somebody is not smart enough to know the ins and outs of all of these institutions. And definitely not Trump's not smart enough to read the 900 plus pages, of the Project 2025 document. So of course he's going to like hand out all of these books to all the departments and say, whatever's in there, let's get this done, because it's the quickest path for him to take over the nation personally as a king and run for election or whatever he's going to do after his 4 years are up. So that's kind of where I'm coming at it, is like, yeah, yes, it's important that it's more important than ever that we vote against Trump, and it's more important than ever that we keep the Congress and the Senate out of the hands, both of them especially, out of the hands of Republicans. But the most important thing is keeping Trump out of office, because he is fully capable and has previously acted on beliefs that the president can act like an authoritarian.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get that, dude. All I'm saying is, you know, worst case scenario, like worst, not even worst case. The scenario is it's, Trump becomes president, and I don't know if it's going to happen.
The video froze up on your end. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Make their own currency, um, are going to be those are going to be hard. Those are going to be hard fought campaigns, because of if you look at what Russia could do if they take Ukraine, if they take the Ukraine or the country of, they could just plow through Europe, or possibly. I mean, that would be World War III. And I don't think Trump has any visions of his mindset when it comes to helping um, the Ukraine, even though he did send a lot of weaponry to the Ukraine, believe it or not, during his presidency. But I guarantee you, at this point in time, because things have changed, 6 or 7 years down the road, several years down the road, that's not even something I think he would even conceive of doing. I think not. I think I believe, and I know that human rights violations, the ecosystem, that's out the window, because he got rid of the EPA, bro. Remember when he came in, he just
Mhm.
he stripped that right out. He just said, "You're done." Culturally, I mean, dude, we all know it's gonna. It's like we all know it's gonna happen, bro. This is, whew, man. Yeah, this is. I mean, it's, if you don't understand like the psychology behind what's going to happen in this country and the exploitation that's going to happen, just based on the fascist freaking mind thoughts of people who are writing, you know, I mean, yeah, writing this doctrine. It's like, I mean, the the Heritage Foundation is not just a conservative think tank, right? It advocates for limited everything when it comes to BIPOC people. Like, you know, it doesn't, they're not, especially now when white men and women are just like, they just literally don't have a chance at like even seeing the light of day or the dreams that this nation was for them, you know, like that period from 1948 to 1975, where that's what their dreams were. Like, you know, dad would go to work, come home, kiss the wife, you know, kick the dog, have a six-pack, and you know, life went on. You know, vacations every year, and you know, beautiful house in the suburbs. Those days are over, bro. And that's what the Heritage Foundation, it's all about power, right? And stooge named Donald Trump, I don't know if he's a stooge president of the United States. That just in and of itself just went away. But you're looking at, what you're looking at is how does this say, authoritism, right? You're talking about a government that will be based on policies that are dedicated to a king, right? The erosion or just the end of democratic norms, creating you know, conditions that are conducive to authoritarianism. I can never say that word right. But anyways,
I know it's a hard
you know,
one.
no more civil liberties. It's over. It's over. You know, it's complete and utter nationalism when it comes to being a white man in this country will be that's going to be that's going to be what takes this country over. You know, there's going to be a lot of corporate influence, which, you know, we already know we're getting gouged in this country. If you don't understand that now, you should. You think anti-immigrant policies are going to be bad? You think they're bad now? Yeah, you're right. If he becomes president, dude, it's over. It's over. It's just being a brown or a black, or being a brown, black person, or a person of any color, or anyone that's not white in this country. If Donald Trump, I was about to call him Donald Reagan. If Donald Trump becomes president, bro, is gonna be makes sense, right? Donald Reagan. But no, if he becomes president, dude, is just, I mean, am I scared? I wouldn't say I'm just saying that there's going to be a danger for a lot of people, dude. It's going to be a situation that's just it's going to be ugly. And honestly, even if it, let's just say he doesn't win, okay? The fact that these people even wrote the playbook, and that playbook gets disseminated somehow throughout popular culture, you know, for the people who believe in that type of rhetoric, which I'm assuming safely that it will, okay? It's going to be on, bruh. It's going to be on. Like, these people don't care. I mean, what do you think? I mean, you know, like trying to have hold on real quick. So I was on TikTok last night, bro. And this is the way this is going on right now. Dude, white men in this country are pissed the fuck off. Like, they're pissed, bruh. They're pissed. Like, these guys come in, they get hot on these panels, dude. They don't come in like, hey, man, what's up? What's going on? They come in yelling. Like, well, you don't know if I mean, they're not happy, bro. They're not happy. And even if Donald Trump wins, they're going to be even more vocal, and the empathy level, like any type of empathy they ever had in their entire lives, that's going to be gone. These people are going to be out for bear, bro. They're going to be out to hurt people, bro. That's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on like some important things, too many for me to keep like track of, but one in particular that stuck out to me was you mentioned that well, people think it's bad now, it's going to get worse, and I think you mentioned like the price of things, like oh, that's right, you were like corporate influence is going to skyrocket, because that's who they vote for. They think they're going to get lowered taxes. Well, they get lowered taxes for the rich, which that benefits corporation holders. They get less regulation. They get less investigations into improper practices for rich people who own businesses.
Yeah.
Less labor, unionization, stuff like that. Less labor protections, but something people aren't really looking at is if you read the Project 2025 document, um, it's, I mean, the scariest part is that it's pure theocracy. They don't hide that in the document at all. They immediately go into attacking LGBTQ and non-traditional families by saying that in the document they say that who is under attack are traditional Christian families, and what's I'm positive, what's the underlying tone there is a specific type of family, specific color of family who's Christian and traditional. So they, that immediately says they're going to do with gay marriage. But one of the other things that they mention a little further down into the document is that this nation and its traditional values is being attacked by China. They mention a few other things, but they say that they're going to lock down the influence of China on, American commerce and culture. And what that means, you can't read it in any other way other than saying that they're going to cut off the flow of commerce, of trade. So getting products from China is of course the first thing that you'll notice. It'll be like COVID again, where there will be tariffs, so high on Chinese products that Americans no longer can afford them. And that's not the only problem. Trade goes two ways. When you don't have a functioning commerce, international commerce like that, especially with somebody as big and as powerful as China and the United States, when we stop buying their goods and they stop buying our goods, that immediately results not just in more expensive goods, in lost jobs. All of a sudden, the manufactured products from both nations that are required to kind of go back and forth to make certain products cease to be traded back and forth, and so those products and the purchasability from whatever companies buy from the manufacturers to sell those products, those things can't be built anymore, which means they can't be sold anymore. So you're talking about a very, very limited supply of products all of a sudden that you didn't even think about. Like cars would be the most immediately, like obvious one, but there's other things like computers, TVs, your blender in your living room, printers, like basically everything requires on cooperation between nations. And this document details very clearly that they want to cut off all international influence. They kind of allude to, kind of the JAQ, the just asking questions, the Jewish conspiracy type stuff. And they definitely, by name, mention
Right.
China. And so they talk about the Jewish thing and like them being international, global business owners who are messing up our culture or whatever, and removing their rights and blah, 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 destroying the family. So they're going to destroy the economy if they put in place this Project 2025. And for anybody who is newly listening to this and doesn't know, the way they plan to achieve that is by using, I think it's called, is it called not Title F, but it's something like, I forget. It's a type of designation that you change a federal employee from one type of designation to another. And under current, kind of like the way they're registered as federal workers, they're it's really hard to fire them, and that's good. It's to protect them so that you know, like a madman can't come in and just fire everybody who doesn't support him and his ways or her ways, their ways. Um, so it's labor protections essentially, and it's to keep the cog moving. It's so that people who push paper, across desks day to day that keep the machinery functioning. We need to be able to have a functioning government in order to, like defend ourselves from an attack if an attack happens, or if there's a natural disaster, or just to keep the roads running, to keep the lights on across the nation. So that's why those protections are there. But there is a little mechanism where you can redefine federal workers to this like class F, and then you can fire them immediately. And Trump actually did that during his administration. Um, and the plan is to do this with about 50,000 workers day one, for whichever Republican gets office next, according to this Project 2025 documentation. And then they replace all of those 50,000 workers with absolute sycophants that they have set up a website to go through. They, in their words, they've set up a LinkedIn for conservative Christians. So you go through this like interview process online and fill out a form, and it's got really leading questions saying like, I believe that you know, I don't know, job protections are good, and civil, civil marriages are just, and blah 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 blah. I agree, yes or no. So it's using modern language and modern ideas that they're counter to in kind of a misleading manner to get you to click, honestly, whether you're kind of a liberal or a conservative. And it's all of the hot button topics that you see on all of the like red pilled, MAGA websites and everything. So they're making a database full of like through these questionnaires that's going to be full of people. They're going to reject everybody who doesn't believe in their ideals, who isn't red pilled, and then just fill up, a social site with LinkedIn. That's the idea. That's what this project says. This isn't a conspiracy. This is what the documentation says, and those websites have been up for months. So they're taking applications actively. We don't know how many they have because they're not transparent about it. The initial reports were they weren't doing great. There were only a few thousand people, and they expected to get tens of thousands and tens of thousands continuously. I'm not sure if that's still the case. I hope that people are just too lazy to decide to take a job in Washington and actually have to go through the training and stuff. But like that's the plan. There is a plan in place. It is very well funded by these extremist billionaires and these and 100 plus think tanks who have all sorts of donors of all sizes. Um, so there's the idea that money is gonna, like, everybody's pocketbook is gonna be affected, is like one very very small part of it. But I think for anybody who is typically unconcerned with politics and thinks that they're going to be immune from any downfall because they're not gay, because they're not married, in a non-traditional way, maybe they're Christian, you should think about the money first of all. It's definitely going to affect your pocketbook. Everybody's going to be poor. Everybody's going to be in that boat and struggling because jobs are going to go away. The economy is going to a crash
Well,
if
not
that
only, dude,
happens.
you're gonna
Um, Go ahead.
find a lot of you're gonna find there's gonna be economic side, and I was gonna say there's gonna be the economic side, and then there's gonna be the loss or the destruction of any
Yeah, I figured that was going to happen. We'll wait a minute and see if he shows back up and edit this stuff later. Waiting on Rodney to pop back in the channel. Oh, he's calling. Hey, what's going on, man?
Okay. Oh my God.
What are you thinking? Wait, I can't hear you if you're still there. I heard you say Still can't hear you if you can hear me. I'm going to try and call you back.
You hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Did it kick you off?
It didn't. I mean, I'm still in it. It says it's still recording.
Yeah, it kicked me off, dude.
It's just, it's something's up with your network. I think once you get your new connection, I think that's going to get fixed.
Yeah, so let me.
I mean, I'm still recording. You can just pop back in,
Okay,
and
hold on.
and then we can.
I'm gonna do that right now.
And we can just edit out all the shitty parts.
Okay, yeah. Okay, hold on 1 second.
Okay. Hey. Okay. Can you hear me?
Can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I guess what I was saying was
hold on. Let me remove myself and put myself back in to get us in the right order. You were on the other side of me.
Yeah.
Yep. There we go. Okay.
Can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think that like I was saying, there's going to be a lot of just. I guess we just know how bad this is going to be, you know. Like there's just going to be a lot of things that just go wrong, you know. There's just from like dependence on the inability of people to have their what I should say is there are going to be a lot of people out there, BIPOC people, Black, because dude, this is America. We're not what do they call it? They want to call it a I would like to call it a mosaic, but we're not some mixed salad. We're not a but that's not just who we, because we're extremely tribal right now, dude. Like let me give you an example of what I'm saying. I was talking to a guy yesterday, a Mexican American, who said, this is literally what he said to me. He said, Mexican Americans have the 5th largest GDP in the world. He said that to me, bro. And I'm like, no, they don't. I'm like, Mexican Americans are an economic they're an economic block, or they're a certain part of the citizenry which make up about 67% of the United States. Was it 67%? No, of the buying power in the United States, of the economy, right? I said, you don't understand what GDP is, and so that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a lot of what you're going to be dealing with, if this comes down, is a lot of people, and I'm just going to say this, and people might not like it, but a lot of Latinos and a lot of Asians who are going to say, "Hey, man," they're definitely going to shift their whole thing to like, now I'm white, like now I'm against anything that doesn't look like me, and I'm going to lean more towards white supremacy, bro. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen, because it's already happening. If you are Cuban and you're more Castilian than you are indigenous looking, if your phenotype is, if you can present as white in this country, you're gonna do that, because based on 2025, okay, that's it's gonna happen, and there are going to be a lot of people, a lot of indigenous people, a lot of Black people in this country, a lot of people of color who are Cuban, Mexican, that are going to not just economically fall on hard times, but the segregation and the discrimination based on Project 2025 is going to go through the roof. Okay, and that will affect everything that is said and done in this country, especially if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim. People, they don't want to see that, dude. They're looking at a situation where it's going to be unbelievably hard for them to understand that, dude, you really don't want to go down that road. Voting for a man who does not have a, and especially you poor white people, you middle-class white people, you people, white men and women that aren't making more than $50,000 a year, why would you think like that to yourselves? Like if your combined family income is $50,000 to $60,000 a year, why would you do that to yourselves? Why? Makes no sense, But a lot of people would rather be in a situation where they're, like the one man said when I was when I was in the Marine Corps, North Carolina, he goes, I met this redneck. He said to me, I might not be rich, but at least I'm not at least I'm not an N-word. That's what he said to me. And that's coming back because, yeah, dude, I mean, that's what this is all about, bro. Economically, geopolitically, policy-driven stuff, I get it. But I mean, what this is about is diversity. And the fact that the way the right or the fascist patriarchal white society in this country wins is to divide and conquer and keep it that way. It's the same way in Mexico. When you go on Telemundo, you don't see brown Mexicans on there, with the news. Dude, I'm telling you, and that's just the way it is, and then on top of that, bro, think about it this way too. You're going to have like all these like major universities like Stanford, the brain drain and resources that are going to be diverted from other like real endeavors, like important endeavors towards this project. The fact that they're going to make sure that white men and women have more civil rights than people of color, whether it's education, jobs, whatever. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wish that I could say you're being too sensitive because you come from a segment of people or a time in history, and you've gone through things that have made you hypersensitive, and you're misreading this, and you're overreacting, and that's not where we're headed. But Um, but you're right, and here's where I get the evidence to support that line of thinking. There's been a lot of analysis in seeing who showed up to the January 6th insurrection and who is primarily voting for Trump and the MAGA Republicans on the local level in various states, who's taking over the party, who's pushing for the extremism and, on board with Project 2025. And um, it was really interesting after January 6th. There were all of these kind of it's not really rumors, just people pointing out that when you see these little interviews of somebody standing outside the Capitol who hadn't quite yet, January 6th hadn't quite gotten to the violent stage yet, and they're just kind of still standing out there talking about why they're there, and they're just proud to show their faces and give an interview. They had time for an interview before the violence started. You'd commonly get these uh, middle-aged to slightly older
That's
than middle-aged white
escalate.
people hold on, who own small businesses and are slightly better off than the average income in the United States. So they'd be driving these big trucks, with like extra enough expendable money to buy all of this merchandise, all these flags, to like fly their family out there like it's Disneyland. The average income family, average income earning family, does not have expendable money like that. Does not own a small business, and so as more and more information has kind of been gleaned from these new conservatives who have taken over the party, it's become clear that they do in fact have slightly more money than the average income. And here's the interesting part. There's a term that's been going around for a little while, for some years, called ex-urban, so ex-urbanites. And what ex-urban is a description of people building communities away from the center, both away from urban and suburban. So it's neither urban, it's not suburban, and it's not rural. So they're building new communities outside of the city, and you'll find primarily these white Christian nationalists, Trump supporting, conservative, religious, who go to mega churches. And this is the core demographic of the people who are pushing this type of thing. And of course, you're right, they're going to welcome um, Hispanics or almost anybody who kind of fits the right time um, to into their community, as long as they toe the line and know their place. And you and I both know that the second it becomes advantageous for them to kick those people out or abuse them or whatever, that's going to be the end of their usefulness. But they will not be in the majority. The Hispanics who are pulling up the ladder, the Mexican Americans, just anybody who doesn't belong to the white Christian nationalist archetype, um, they will briefly be welcomed as a means to an ends, and then they will be some of the first on the chopping block after trans people and gay people who got married, and then down the list, like as all of these people lose their rights, according to plan that's well written out in Project 2025, then the supporters who joined them in taking over the nation will be next up on the chopping block. So it's not poor people who are primarily pushing the front line of this war. It is slightly wealthier than average, older white Christians. So it's Christian nationalists. This is what like the modern day Nazi movement in America looks like. And it fits the same type of anxiety you saw happen in Germany, where it was kind of the average and slightly wealthier average people initially who got the movement going, and then they recruited a lot of the less wealthy people and the country bumpkins, so to speak, like the people who were, the hard working people who quote unquote like showered after work, not before work. Those people were brought in, and then once they got their power, everybody suffered, and it's going to be the exact same thing again. This is not about helping people. This is about amassing power, taking over, and it says it in Project 2025 that they cannot use the system as it stands today, and work it to their favor. It says that they have to destroy it. They have to destroy the system from within. That's why you put in the 50,000 workers. You put them in like evil Ron Swansons or whatever, and they gut the EPA, they gut the State Department, they gut, the IRS, they gut everything, to the point that it breaks down so much that they have to just completely rebuild the system to get anything working again. And of course, they will rebuild it. That it's written there. This isn't a guess. They will rebuild it as a white Christian nationalist, fever dream. So it will no longer be democracy. It will no longer be the United States as it was intended by, the founders. It certainly will not be a safe place for people who are enjoying things or even struggling. If you think you're struggling now, you ain't seen nothing yet. The struggling will be an entirely different beast that we don't see in modern times. It's going to be insane. So yeah, I'm very concerned. I'm very worried that we're this close to having this type of thing enacted, and it's not just a possibility. We are a hair's breadth away. I mean, like things like Joe Biden dying, which I'm going to vote for him. I'm not telling people he's too old. He is old, but he's what we've got right now. But something like Joe Biden dying could be the thing that tips it over into us heading into Christian nationalism and having Project 2025, enacted. So we got to protect Joe, stop letting him ride bicycles or whatever. Like put a bubble around him. We got to vote for Joe. We got to vote for, like I hate saying vote down the party line, but we have to vote down the party line as Democrats. I know we love thinking about each and every candidate as hard as we can. And, there's a few instances where I say, you need to be concerned. Like in some of the more purple states, you have some kind of subversive candidates who are actually conservatives running as Democrats. Be aware of things like that. But as
Yeah,
long as you're
they did
getting
that in North
genuine,
Carolina.
Mhm. As long as you're getting a genuine, progressive or just anything center or left of center, just not a Nazi, just not a Christian nationalist. If you're getting anybody that genuinely, hates, abhors Christian nationalism and wants to be a public servant, vote for that person. And
Well,
that is the major thing we can do right now to save the nation, is to focus on keeping a Republican, particularly Trump, out of power in 2025, January, 7th, whenever it gets handed over.
well, you got to ask yourself this, dude, and just like the scales the percentages of black Republicans is really small. I mean, it's really small. So what I would ask myself, or what I ask myself, and I know the answer, but a lot of people don't. Why do some white people fear people of color? I mean, and they can't. Of course, they can answer that question, but I mean, the cultural conditioning that has gone on in this country for, I don't know, 400 years. Let's just say the Western civilization, right? So the cultural conditioning that's gone on in Western civilization for the last 500 years, um, it's perpetuated some of the most undignified stereotypes and negative portrayals of people of color in media, history, literature, and other cultural outlets. And exposure for a lot of younger white children is why exposure to these stereotypes by their parents, by appearance of white children can influence individuals' perceptions and contribute to, all these feelings of fear and mistrust of Black people, right? Like we didn't, again, for the 10th, what have I said this 10,000 times? We as Black people did not ask to be here. Didn't ask. We weren't standing on the shores of Africa with tickets in our hands and resumes, right? So now you have a situation where there are a bunch and hold on, let me just backtrack for a second. What you have to understand is that this type of rhetoric has been going on since Richard Nixon became president. They've been waiting for this moment for the last 50, 55 years. And they're not going to stop, dude. This isn't something that if Trump loses, this is gonna go on forever. This is not some. There are going to be, and it's a race issue. A race issue. It's a cultural issue. I mean, I know there are the economic issues as well, but power dynamics in societies where white people have, for the last 350, 400 years, where white people have historically held positions of power and privilege, they're afraid of losing that power and that privilege or status, as a demographic. And it's just, you've got a lot of ignorant people out there, bro, who don't, they say things like, dude, Trump could sleep with my wife and I'd still vote with him, still vote for him. And that's what you're dealing with. There's a threat to the identity that the social and political construct of America has built for white people and culturally. And when and if, I shouldn't say if, because at some point it's just not going to be the same. You cannot, and I think I've said this before. When you go into countries, I use these two as like the main artifact of my position when it comes to deregulating or just undoing social norms in other countries and cultural and political norms. When the United States went into Guatemala and Iran in 1953 and couped both those governments, putting in a general in Guatemala after they had elected a democratic election that produced a democratic president who wanted to nationalize the agricultural the agriculture of Guatemala. I think it was one of the major food corporations in America that told Allen Dulles, who was at the time the head of the CIA. They said, "Hey man, this guy's he's a communist." Said the same thing about the guy in Iran. Hence, the Shah of Iran came into power. And of course, we know what happened to him in 1979, 1980. And then, this general took over Guatemala and just turned up the heat. And, he killed a lot of people and basically destabilized that entire region. Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Colombia. I mean, that's the European part of manifest destiny and imperialism, that if Trump is elected, through the 2023 project will take the United. And all of it, like all the things that we've been speaking on for the last hour here, those things are going to happen if he becomes president. And then like we said, on top of that, if I'm mean, just imagine, all three branches of government are Republican. Dude, come on. It's, bro, this guy's going to be king for a day, man. So yeah,
Hmm.
those are my feelings, bro. Those are my feelings. It's not
Yeah,
even my
I think
feelings. That's just the truth.
that's your observation. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree with you, and I I particularly again can use the same point to back it up. Um, it is okay. So you talked about like it is largely a racism problem, and not largely just all of these economically insecure people who are voting Republican because they're convinced Republicans will this time for really reals, even though they haven't every other time they've been elected, fix the economy and make life better. Um, we know that that's true because it's about a third of the country who consistently votes for Trump and for these type of projects, and the party under these lines of reasoning, like bringing Christianity back and blah, saving the traditional family. And we also know through very good polling that it's about a quarter of the nation, about 25% of those who will engage with well run polls believe in authoritarianism, do believe that the United States should have an authoritarian type leader to quote unquote fix, whatever complaints they have. And for sure, there's complaints to be had through the nation, but we're talking about specific complaints that deal largely with what you're discussing, the loss of what they perceive as a white Christian nation traditionally, even though it wasn't. It was intentionally set up to not be a Christian nation. It's there in the text, but they think that was a mistake, and they think that because they had power and could push Christian ideals into both cultural and political, legal, judicial systems, historically, that should be evidence that is the right way, because might makes right, according to to white supremacists, to white nationalists, to Nazis. That's always been the case. So they believe that history supports their viewpoint because they had control, and seeing the ability for that to change over time. And it changed. People need to realize that it changed, and not just in like me as an American, not just in my idea. Globally, you'll see other experts discuss historically how in governmental systems, cultural systems, historically, it wasn't a prevalent idea. It wasn't even an idea to change systems as large as the United States into democracies through conversation alone, and more particularly in ways like the United States got changed from the 60s, to this through to the modern day, where you change things for the better through arguments that are moral, saying, hey, black people shouldn't have to go through a different door, shouldn't have separate drinking fountains, their children should have the same access to the same quality of schools, that it's wrong. That type of argument, and changing of the system based on moral arguments, did not and has not happened historically. That's a very, very new thing. And that right there is what changed the country in ways that white supremacists and these people who say they have anxiety about the future of America, that is what they don't like. Now, they might not understand what happened historically and why they don't like it. They just know the system has changed and is not working in the way it used to, or that they were told it was supposed to work. But what they're arguing against are the very innate American ideals that globally were admired, and were adopted by other European nations and other nations who transformed into various forms of democracies, be it social democracy or whatever, parliaments and stuff. So So we're legitimately talking about groups of people who are largely this 25% who are un-American. They believe in authoritarianism. They want a king. They do not want the moral argument to be able to change a system for the better. They want to maintain a system that is preferential for one group of people. And that is un-American. That is not what we were founded on. That's not what we adapted through the power of the people and through the power of moral argument into becoming. They want to change that, reverse it, and go back to a system that they certainly won't like once it actually gets put into place, but a place that they were told they would benefit from. So it is largely populated by these people who are un-American, who are headed towards, white nationalism, or are straight up already white nationalists, or are, if they're not themselves, they are supporting it, even if they don't understand it. I'm certain that some of them don't, because like I said, some of these people are moving into these new ex-urban communities, and the problem with an ex-urban community is that it's isolated. Now, that's a benefit for these types of groups. So when you isolate these groups, they don't have third spaces. We've talked about third spaces in other episodes. They
Yeah,
don't have third
yeah,
spaces
we
to
have.
get together where they can meet Black people, where they can meet trans people. That's when you change hearts and you change minds, and you get somebody to behave more like an enlightened, uh, um, like forgiving and giving American, who enjoys the benefits of adapting and changing a nation in positive and progressive ways, making things more fair, and opening up trade, and helping progress, happen on all levels, from small to big.
Well,
Um, hold on. So these
okay.
people are stuck in these little communities, and their leaders and their conversations only happen. Their third space is their church, their big mega church, or their corporate entities. They go to their corporate spaces, and they talk to people who are exactly like them, and they get the same talking points that are spout off on Fox News, because they're not watching, non-traditional liberal media. They're watching cable news or Fox News or conspiracy theory people that all of their community watches and talks about, because that's the only access that they have to conversations or to news, and it's self-reinforcing. So, like you said, they are going to fear Black people, because these outlets and these people only push the fear mongering about Black people and minorities and immigrants and trans people and trans kids. Tell everybody that everybody they don't like is a kid abuser, is grooming, is, bringing crime,
I get
and
it.
then they begin to resent the things that aren't them. So if they're in an ex-urban community that looks like them, that thinks like them, that even though these places statistically have higher levels of crime than the city that's nearest them,
Yeah.
they're going to resent that city, because that city, of course, has crime, but it has stickers on a record store that says trans people are protected here. So they don't like the music, they don't like the stores, they don't like the city, they resent the people in it, and then they just shrink back into their little community. So it's a reinforcing feedback loop,
Well,
and it's going to continue.
it's called cultural conditioning. Okay. Period.
Yeah,
That's what it's called.
yeah,
People get conditioned culturally. I mean, I've seen it my whole life. So have you. Grown up, um, that's just it. Many societies perpetuate stereotypes, or at least the American society, American white patriarchal society. Um, they have perpetuated stereotypes and negative portrayals of people of color in the media, and just days gone by. Just racism, prejudice, power dynamics, straight up ignorance and lack of exposure, like you just said. Um, it's just all of this stuff, right? Peer pressure, peer influence, socialization, just being social. Dude, there is a community in Indiana that homeschools their children in Nazi propaganda. Just look
I
it up.
believe it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like when I saw that, bro, I was like, what? But it's real, dude.
I mean,
It's real, you know.
I mean,
Go ahead.
just this week, we got stories. I mean, articles from witnesses, from parents, from people adjacent to them, from kids who were going through this special school from Kanye, from Ye or Ye. I don't know how you say that name. Um, where he's been going through this pipeline of this insane kooky white supremacist nationalist stuff. Like, they're adjacent to him. He thinks he's enlightened and developing his own thing, but he's buying into the same conspiracy theories and eating up the same information that is used to culturally condition these people. and
That's
and
so
it's reflected
crazy.
in the school that he's developing, where it's come out that he wanted to build a prison. These are children. He wanted to build a prison inside of this school. He wanted to shave their heads. He was putting them in these uniforms that are akin exactly to what the Nazi youth
Oh my
were
God,
wearing.
dude.
I mean, it's insane. And it goes further and further. It goes like they're only allowed to eat sushi. That's it. They had no recess. Like, you weren't allowed to chill out
Play,
at any moment. Yeah. So
be a
so there's all
kid.
sorts of these parallels of, like, he's eating up all of this, like, kooky mythology that is being pushed in these circles to get Christian nationalists like foaming at the mouth, basically horny for the future that is never going to happen. Once they get power, they're just going to suck up all of the money, remove everybody's rights, just destroy the economy, run up the national deficit like we've never seen before, so that a specific few who are connected can funnel that money into their own companies
I'm telling
and
you, man.
friends pockets.
You better be ready to, like, yeah, I mean, this isn't even a joke, bro. I mean, if you're not ready, if you haven't started growing stuff and jarring it up, if you haven't done that, if you don't know how to grow food, you better learn. If you don't have a well on your property, you better do something, because whether it's moving to another country, whether it's moving out into the outback or just going off grid, because what they're going to do is they're going to find you and take that from you at some point. Like, even if you're off grid in the middle of nowhere, not bothering anyone, they're going to take your land. That's what they're going to do. Especially if you are in a situation where you are not a part of their clan. Like, my whole family, like, for instance, my entire family is multicultural as hell. White, black, Puerto Rican. That's my family in a nutshell. Like, everything under the sun, you can't even. Yeah, you can't even. That's just the way it is. That's how we grew up. That's how everyone in our family was. So, anyways, yeah. I mean, at this point, dude, learn how to do that stuff. Like, really learn how to do that stuff. If you don't have weapons, buy weapons. I'm not telling anyone what to do. Not telling you what to do. Not doing that. This is for educational purposes only. You know what I mean? So think about where we're going. Even if Biden wins, think about where we're going. Because this is not going to be easy, man.
I mean, this country has always been a place where you should be acquiring knowledge and preparing yourself for any eventuality that might not seem likely at the moment. And again, I think we've mentioned this before. Like, who in 2019 thought that in December of 2019 and through February of 2020 that the United States economy would completely shut down overnight and leave everybody struggling, and alone, like held captive in their homes. And I don't mean that we shouldn't have, I was very much somebody who thought we should um, chill out, step back, and not kill all of the old people before we could get a vaccine in place for people. I fully support vaccines. I
Yeah.
support being cautious, but there was a price. There was a price, and we knew that was going to happen. At least those of us who thought calmly and knew that nothing's for free. There's always a trade off. Um, I don't think we all understood how seriously the kids would be impacted with their education and socialization, but we all knew that there were going to be, costs to pay out. But nobody knew in 2019 that a pandemic was just days away and was going to shut down everything for a couple of years. I think if you had asked somebody, if you had told somebody, and there have been, you know, um, studies put out again and again and again before 2019 saying we're changing the environment. That means we're going to be having migrationary patterns change. That's going to put at risk the transmission of viruses, which can become zoonotic and jump into humans. Therefore, it's more likely that we're going to see plagues, viral outbreaks, pandemics sooner than later, and they're going to increase thanks to like global warming and human use of resources or overuse of resources.
Yeah,
We had reports
absolutely.
saying that, but if you had told somebody in 2019 that hey, this is going to happen here in a few months, and stuff is going to mess up for a while. By a while, they probably would have told you, and I heard this several times, a few weeks, a few months, like is how long it's going to mess up. Like we'll all be back to work, in 30 days or a couple months after it passes and it calms down. And that's not what happened. So we don't really have our fingers on the pulse of reality. So you do need to, at least I'm a big advocate of like if your parents didn't teach you, if you didn't have a dad, like I didn't have a dad that like taught me how to like fix cars or grow stuff in the garden. My mom taught me how to grow stuff in the garden and cook, but some people don't have that from either parent. Um, YouTube's out there, man. Like while it's there, while while we still have it, at least
While it's
fairly
still up
for
and rocking. Yep.
while it's at least free. You have to watch ads, but whatever. Watch videos. There's lots of like dad type figures out there that are famous for acting like your dad, teaching you how to tie a tie on YouTube, teaching you how to use whichever tool you need to use, teaching you how to put blinds up, teaching you how to,
Well,
replace your alternator. Like go learn how to
here,
do these things right now.
here's the thing, dude. Americans are, we don't look, man. In Mexico, people get shit done, even though they're the third world, right? They know how to live within their means. Americans have no concept of that. We still think as a country that we're the best, we're the biggest. Okay, militarily, hey, yes, that is definitely true. But we can't, our military audits, we haven't passed one in like decades. Like we throw away money in these military, like there's just no reason for us not to know where $30 billion went. Okay, there's just no reason. Okay, and the fact that something like Palestine or Palestine, Indiana happens with the railroad,
Hmm.
with that um, that accident, the fact that there are people, man, like white people just fell for the okie doke, bro. I mean, like 1947 and like 1975, again and again and again, I will say this. That is the only time white men and women really, because of the GI Bill and all the things that they were afforded in the late 40s and the early 50s and through the 60s and the early 70s. And what policies and politics and social norms and cultural norms did to Black Americans what we had to go through and are still going through, as well as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, there's a reason, there's a reason why we're in this situation. Because look, at one point in time, historically, there's no such beginning of the country, dude, the 1500s, the 1600s, up until the 1619 Project and Bacon's Rebellion. There was no such thing as white people. All of a sudden, you're white in the 17th century, and they just kept accepting different parts of Europe that came to the United States as white people. Because what you have to understand, at one point in this country, there were more people of African descent than the population of people of African descent was much larger than white people in the 1700s and 1800s, based on just because of slavery, right? The population of white America did not start growing until the industrial age. That's when Slavic people, Italians, Irish, your Polish, your Romanian, the Eastern Bloc people started coming to America. You know what I mean? And that's where they their numbers, all of a sudden you're Romanian, no, now you're white. You're Polish, no, now you're white. You're Scandinavian, no, now you're white. You're Yugoslavian or Czechoslovakian, and I'm talking about the old country, right? That's what happened. And now all of these people are white. And now they're just dogging people of color, whether they're Latinos, blacks, doesn't matter. That's what they're doing. And I mean ruthlessly, okay? And all the, one day it's around 75, 80, when mom had to go to work, when dad couldn't just stay home and take care of provide for, or when mom couldn't just stay home and provide, and dad would just go to work and provide for the family. Now mom has to work. Now the latchkey kid comes in. Now there's a kid with a key around his neck that has to make his own lunch, probably cook his own dinner or her dinner. And, it started eroding the quote unquote nuclear family, right? This is where we are because of that. Right? Because Ronald Reagan in the 80s deregulated everything. Bill Clinton provided us with the school to prison pipeline. And George W. Bush provided us with a recession. Right? And then Donald Trump couldn't take care of a pandemic. All Republican presidents, all of them. Okay? Now this is where we are. And it's not our fault. People of color had nothing to do with this. Black people, we had nothing to do with this. I don't know, man. This is something that it's not even a situation where we could talk about this forever. We might not be able to talk about this forever because it might become the landscape of social, cultural, political, and economic America. It just might be the landscape of America at some point.
Yeah. It's definitely. I'm constantly reminded that by the news we have to read that minorities are being blamed by conservatives, by the far right. Well, I say the far right. The far right is now just the right. But they're constantly using this segment of people as the scapegoats for political purposes. But it's gotten to the point they've gotten so addicted to it that it's now just consistent, even outside of election season. Like election season now is just constant. It's been all 4 years since Biden won. It was all 4 years during Trump being in power. When in the very beginning of Trump's presidency, they had both houses, right? Then they had both houses.
Yeah.
And he had the presidency. And what did they do with that? They didn't fix jack shit. They didn't address the things that they had been complaining about. They enacted policies of hate, and they destroyed things because that's all their party is about, is destroying things and giving themselves a victim complex and blaming the usual targets as a recruitment device, and to prop themselves up into a position where they can stand to take power again once it's lost. I think they enjoy the cat and mouse game of losing power and gaining it back more than they enjoy governing. I don't think they enjoy governing at all because they don't know how to do it. They know very well how to blame people, and that target is usually people of color, Black people, indigenous people, just like, BIPOC, like you said. And it's transitioned into that plus trans people because, gay people have become more accepted by Americans. But Project 2025, in its text, shows us that white Christian nationalists are no longer going to stand for sitting back and letting gay people have the rights that they've acquired. And you better bet that that's going to apply to people of color next. Um, once gay people are off their radar because they've revoked marriage rights and made trans people afraid to transition successfully again, and removed the ability to get that's something we
Something for
didn't
you, dude.
address.
That's not going to happen
That,
with people of color.
that's something. Well, what I'm saying is people of
What's that?
color need to know that they're not immune, need to know that, like, they can't just stand back and not vote. They need to stand up and vote because they're going to be the next target
Yeah.
after because the nuclear family, when they say they're going to defend the nuclear family, remember what was happening during the panics of, like, man, the black criminal is going to come in and sexually assault your wife and your daughter, or marry your daughter or not marry her and get her pregnant, blah, blah, blah. Those were things we heard for decades and decades and decades. Well, for hundreds of years, but during our lives, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's going to come back if Project 2025 gets into power. They're not going to just stop at destroying the lives of gay people, of trans people, of Democrats. It's going to go back to old school racism, brought like open daylight racism. But yeah, so one of the things we didn't address is, and I'm trying to remember the name of the law there, Project 2025, and the people, more importantly, the people behind it, because they've been doing this already, where they install their hyper conservative, hyper religious, white nationalist type judges, at least those who are sympathetic to that community. Um, they've been putting them in power, putting a lot of them in power, and bringing in a lot of, like, lawsuits and stuff, trying to shove it up to the Supreme Court, um, and trying to use old laws that are on the books still that we haven't removed, to their advantage to get some of their goals done. And one example that's really important that we're going to see more of, I'm trying to remember the name of this law, but it's an old law that gets brought up occasionally by conservatives, that has to deal with what's obscene materials. And they tried to use it in the 80s during the Reagan moral panics, to, like, try to outlaw, like, pornography and rap music. But one of those like lines in that law also deals with mail, with like federal mail or just mail in general, saying that it's illegal to mail obscene materials. And they're trying currently to apply that part of the law, this old law that says obscene things are illegal, to things like birth control, and to things like hormones for transitioning, and okay. So the reason this law was applied to the male back then, was they were trying to outlaw abortion just like they are now, by making it illegal to ship medical tools that helped doctors perform abortions. So that was, like, one of their clever tactics to try to make it harder to perform abortions if they couldn't legitimately just outlaw it, kind of a backup, a safety measure.
Yeah.
And they're trying to bring this back and apply it broadly, Because if you think about a group like the Heritage Foundation, and all of the people it represents, the white Christian nationalists, or just the hyper conservative religious people who are religious to an extreme, what they consider obscene and what I consider obscene have a wide chasm between the two. What the
Sure.
normal average run of the mill person in America who supports the very vast majority of Americans support abortion under certain conditions, about 75%, if I remember correctly. Um, Most people are okay with gay marriage. Most people are okay with gay people. And the list goes on and on. But these extremists who represent a minority of the United States populations find an extreme number of things obscene that most people do not. And
I
this will be
found
on
some
their.
laws.
Oh, did you?
I found some laws. Yeah, so you've got the federal obscenity law, the United States Code, blah 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 blah. It states that anyone knowingly uses postal mail for mailing obscene, lewd, lascivious, indecent, and filthy material can be fined or imprisoned for 5 years. And then you've got the Comstock law
That's it.
that was
That's
enacted
the
in
one.
1873. Comstock law. Okay, so
Mhm.
yeah, it's 1873, dude. A federal statute that prohibits the mailing of obscene, lewd, or lascivious materials as well, blah, blah, blah. Then you've got another one that was enacted, the Miller Test, that's 1973. Then you've got the child pornography laws. You've got, well, that makes sense. But state law, yeah, dude. I mean, you're talking about laws that were, 1873, bro? 1873.
Mhm.
Like, okay, maybe, I don't know. But continue. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you found the Comstock law, but there are other laws. There are plenty of laws in the book that they're digging up, dusting off, and getting their judges to rule in favor of in order to push this hyper extremist, hyper religious, agenda. And so you better bet that they're going to find a lot more than just medical devices and hormones and mailing hormone. I'm sorry, well, it's hormone type drugs, but birth control. They are very aggressively against the rights of women, and many other people. But I think women should be coming out to vote, particularly because these laws will be used to fight women, to keep them oppressed. Same thing with divorce. They're trying to right now, like even before Project 2025 can get put into place, they're trying to attack women's right to dispute a divorce or to enact a divorce in conservative states where they have judges who are amenable
What is
to
that
that type
called?
of patriarchy. What's that?
I
Oh,
forgot what that's called when
yeah, how you have like contested, no contest, and I can't. Yeah, well, it'd be a
yeah.
contested divorce. Like they're trying to make a contested divorce. Uh, Oh, I forget how that goes, but yeah, basically the type of laws they're trying to get put into place is that sure the man could like divorce a woman if she, like, let's say, offends him in some way, like let's say she cuts her hair short, or he finds out she had sex with a black man, or whatever, she had a lesbian experience, either in the past or presently or whatever. He can get a divorce. But if she finds out he's been cheating, or whatever, he gets a woman pregnant, like let's say the maid or something like that. She can't bring up any grievances. She can't request a divorce. It's not going to be applied because it's supposedly protecting the sanctity of marriage and the traditional family. And these documents, it's in Project 2025. One of their major, like, four pillars is to protect the traditional family. That is one of the major goals of the entire thing, is they say, to reestablish the fact that everybody is forced, that's the way this goes, forced to maintain this religious conservative ideal of a traditional marriage. And
Whew,
in that scenario,
man.
historically, a woman does not get to divorce a man. She does not get to choose
That-
if she is going to stay
Bro,
in the
could you imagine
relationship or
that?
not.
Could you imagine that shit, dude? I mean, think about that, bro. Think
Yeah.
about that. You're in a situation, this guy's just, dude's got your number. You can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere. You can't divorce him. You can't leave him. Nothing.
I would imagine it's probably, if we get those type of laws again, it's probably going to revert back to a case where he can deny you medical treatment if he beats you up. He can, force you to go through a procedure, if like, let's say he wants to fly you out of the nation where abortion is legal, and force you to have one in a place that's amenable to that, where they also have, patriarchal religious
Oh,
systems
Lord.
where women don't have rights. Then when you come back to the United States, you won't have recourse. You won't be able to sue him for a divorce. You won't be able to, bring charges
Anything.
against him.
Nothing.
Yeah, you just have to deal with it. And that's the type of system they are looking to put in place. And that is not a guess. It is in the text that this is the type of system Project 2025 wants to put in place with Trump. And Trump would gladly. He doesn't like to read, folks, and he has shown us he's not a huge fan of uppity women who stand up for themselves. He likes a particular type of woman, and he wants the type of woman that he can abuse. He wants them to look a certain way. He just enjoys abusing people. He likes it when men are tough, and he does this whole like con artist, money for church type thing. The for-profit churches that scam people as well. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
Bible, he's a Bible salesman now, for God's sakes.
Buy my Bible.
Yeah. So we know who he is. We know that he's going to be totally on board with Project 2025. That's not a question. And if he gets power, then so do all of these religious extremists who want to bring in this type of world.
All right, dude. This is making me sick. I can't talk about this anymore.
Okay.
No, I'm sick, dude. It's so, bro. I mean, think about where we are about to blast off to if things don't go the right way.
Hmm.
It's gonna get, dude. I mean, it's not something like people are like, oh, it's gonna be Trump. I'm like, dude, I try to tell these people, well, there's no telling anyone anything anymore, or even explaining. Like I try to explain to these people, bro, this man does not care about you. David Chappelle said when he voted in 2016 and he showed up at the post office, there were all these dusty ass white faces. I shouldn't say dusty ass white faces, but there were all these dusty faces that were white. And all with these pickup trucks, like you said, that had flags and banners, and they were like, Trump's gonna save us. Blah, 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 blah. And David just like, dude, in his own head, he was like, okay, all right, whatever. He's like, Trump's for people like me, bro. Trump, and he goes, he goes, when I go to these cocktail parties and there are all these white people there, he's like, they talk so disdainfully about poor people, whether they're white or black. And if you think white people that are listening to this right now, if you think for any reason or if you really believe that Donald Trump has your best interests at hand, you are sorely mistaken. You are about to have, if this man gets elected, a stone cold hardcore reality check. Go ahead and vote for it. Go ahead. please put your best foot forward, and I guarantee you, when you bring it back, all you'll have is an ankle. That's it.
Yep.
He's going to take everything you have, bro. He's going to take everything you have, and he's not going to look back because he doesn't give a fuck about you, dude. Okay, I'm done.
Yep, you're exactly right. Don't fall for it, people. So everybody's got to get out to vote. Don't wait for anybody to do it. Don't wait for other people to do it, I should say. Don't him and haw. Register to vote now. Vote in your local elections. Blah 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 blah. But the most important thing is to vote against Trump. And the only vote that counts is going to be the vote for Biden, because those are the only two people. And in a winner takes all election, if you're not voting for Biden, you're voting for Trump. That's the way that goes. So I'm sorry if you don't like him. I feel you. I understand the frustration. He's not perfect, but Trump is the most dangerous thing that is offered to us right now, and for a long time. Trump is the most dangerous thing that we've been staring down the barrel of a gun, essentially.
He's going to ruin generations of people, dude. Generations. I mean, this is going to be a generational. Oh, no, there's no way. Trump. No, dude. No. That's not the way it's going to go down. It's just, I mean, what he did by becoming president in 2016, just. Yeah, it's the truth. It's just what he did was truly one of the most astounding things. He brought racists, people from underneath rocks, from out of the shadows that like you said, he gave them the ability to say whatever they want. Now, now they don't care about losing their jobs.
Right.
They don't care. They're going to say what they feel.
Yep.
All right.
Bummer. I know. It is a bummer. It is a bummer.
I mean, I'm telling you. Oh my God, dude. Oh Lord God, dude.
I had such a good day today. I had the eclipse. I had the eclipse. It was like my favorite. I love eclipses. And then we have to.
So amazing.
We can't just like forget life and like be in nature.
Unless you're in nature and you're off the grid and you're not worried about life, dude.
Yeah.
At some point, that's and honestly, dude, at some point, that's where this nation's gonna be. Off the grid, in nature, not worrying about life. That life. We're gonna be living, but we're not gonna worry about all this technology. It's gonna happen. This technology shit. Yeah.
I know you think maybe next month, but maybe.
No, it's not gonna happen. Maybe, dude. You have those two crazy ass people who tried to bring down the grid in Baltimore.
Yeah,
they literally tried to take down the grid.
No, there's the avian flu that jumped from a pig into I think it was a pig or a cow. Oh, it was a cow, from a cow into a man, verified recently, a couple weeks back. And the avian and we don't have any examples yet of it jumping from a person to a person. That's when we really worry and the shit hits the fan. And this would be far worse than COVID, because the avian flu traditionally has about a 60% death rate for humans. So that would, what COVID had, like, I think at first it was like 4 to 6%, and then as we got more and more people, it turned out it was like 2 to 3% kill rate, which is like a lot, but it's not 50 to 60%. 50 to 60% would send us back to farming and no internet.
Over.
It's possible.
That's why, honestly, dude, hopefully in the next I'd say the next year or so, I'm going to be doing some things and getting some things together, and just hopefully, yeah, the next 24 months. Hopefully, we're still all grounded, but yeah, I'm gonna be taking on their responsibilities. I'll put it like that. So we'll see what happens. But hey, yeah, hey guys, thanks for listening. Look, we're just a year old. We've got 3,000 subscribers, and we really want to build this platform. So subscribe, hit the like button, and drop some comments, man. If you want to come up here and see mind, we don't mind you coming up. We'll definitely enjoy you. Doesn't matter. Just be respectful, and if you feel like it's something that as far as your message is concerned, if you feel that you have a message that can help this country, come up. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
So
yep. Shoot us a comment. Let us know you want to talk. We'll talk to you.
Definitely.
Cool.
Oh,
all right.
yeah,
well,
I had a gray until we had this conversation. No, I'm joking. It's this we have, dude. You got to have these conversations. You got to have them. I mean,
I mean, I'd like to say next time we're going to talk about something super, super positive and happy, but I can't make any promises. We'll definitely laugh a couple times. Maybe it'll be a little bit more lighthearted than this. But yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have to touch on this a couple more times before January. So
we'll see. All right, brother.
Okay, cool. So thanks for joining us at American Micro. I'm Anthony Pago. This is Rodney B. Hubbard, and we will see you guys in the next one. See you inside, man.
Okay, brother.